And welcome to another episode of 50 Shades of Grey. Thank you for joining in and listening to me or watching me as it may be on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe and follow because it helps us maintain this channel. So today we are talking about trust. And it's a conversation that I had with a friend the other day around what is trust? Who do we give our trust to in our lives? And are we able to say, as we do to people, I trusted you and you let me down? So I thought, well, first of all, I threw into an AI about trust just to see what it came up with, what trust said. And it said, trust is the belief or confidence that someone or something is reliable, truthful, or will act in your best interest, even when you're vulnerable and uncertain. So there's lots of elements to trust, and there's lots of different places that we give trust. In terms of myself, I'm in a school, I'm a teacher, and safeguarding is a huge part of schools now, obviously, and you're trusted with the care of people's children, and you're trusted to act in the right manner and do the right things, and you're given trust to do various different jobs and activities with the children and keep them safe. And also, as a parent, you're entrusted to do the right things by your child, keep them fed, keep them with a roof over their heads. You're trusted to give them a good example. So there's loads of places that we can find trust in different areas of our lives and to different degrees. It's a key part of relationships, communities, and systems. When you trust in, you're choosing to take a risk. And that's what we're going to come to today. It's all about the risk based on expectations, often without full proof. And that's very true, I think, isn't it? When we head into a relationship, we sometimes start trusting people very quickly because they give us a sense of security, maybe. And we give them this trust quite willingly and freely in the hope that they act accordingly with it. And sometimes vice versa, it happens both ways, not always in relationships. I've found sometimes it can be a very one-way street, the trust, where you completely trust the other person. But if you were to question them, it's not that they don't trust you, but sometimes they just don't think about it. They're not really questioning whether you would be unworthy of their trust because they probably haven't given it to you sometimes as well. So in different contexts, it goes on to say, in relationships, trust means believing someone won't hurt, lie to you, or betray you. It's built over time through consistent, honest, and respectful behavior. Now, I think that's very interesting, especially when it comes to relationship. And that's one question I'm constantly asked is, how long does it take to trust someone, and that people's trust has been broken? And this is where my conversation begins, I think, because have you got the right to say to someone, I gave you my trust and you let me down. You've disappointed me. Because again, I think that depends upon how that trust is given. So we're going to relate this trust just to relationships. That's what we're going to talk about. Because it goes on to say in here, in society, we trust institutions like banks, governments, or healthcare systems to function fairly and effectively. Well, we know that's not true. History shows it's not true. Not the healthcare as such. We can't trust the banks. They've already let us down on several occasions. So we know that. Governments, how often do we find that governments lie to us about what's going on? So in terms of society, trust is completely broken. Technology, we trust software, algorithms, or AI to operate securely without harm. Enough said about that. I think we can just, we know that we can't trust that because we just can't trust technology, can we? It's always breaking down on us. People are always hacking into it. AI, I don't think at the moment we know enough about. We don't know if we can trust it. It does say about key traits of trust. Vulnerability. You're open to being hurt or disappointed. Now, I think that's really interesting because I think you give your trust. You give your trust quite freely, I think, and you must give it freely because you can't. I don't think we can say to people, "Look, I'm trusting you." I know I've probably said that to my son several times. I'm trusting you. You're going to do this when I go out. You're going to take the washing out or in or whatever it may be. But I don't think that's the kind of trust that we're talking about. I think we presume that someone's going to act in the same way as we do in a relationship. So if we're not cheating on them, we're presuming that they're going to act in the same way, providing obviously that you've had conversations before that you're both on the same page. But here's the thing. How often do we do things ourselves that really surprise ourselves that we do? So I've found myself in that situation before where I'll act in a way that when I look back and think about it, I think I was really surprised I acted that way. I took myself by surprise. I didn't think I would say that. I didn't think I would react in that way, but I did. And because it all depends on circumstances, environment, and a whole host of other things that go on. So my point is, if we don't completely know what we're going to do all of the time, we can't actually say to someone, I won't let you down, because we don't know what we're going to do. Put in a situation, we have no idea. I think we can be pretty certain 95, 96, 97% of the time, but there's that 2 or 3% that we just don't know. So the question that I was asked was, can you ever fully trust someone? And here's the conclusion I came to. I think you can completely, fully put your trust in people, but don't be surprised if that doesn't work out. And I avoided saying, don't be surprised if you're let down, because you're giving this trust, I think. You're freely giving this trust. I think it's a different situation if the person says, look, please trust me. I want you to trust me, because they're asking for it. But if you've never had that conversation and you freely give of your trust, I think you need to in a relationship to move forward, obviously. However, I do think if that person doesn't fulfill all these things that we've spoke about already, then that's just a sign for you to move on from that situation. If you feel that bad about it, it may be something you can work through after like losing trust and building it up again. It may not be. I think that what we need to do is maybe adjust how we think about trust and give your trust to someone until you find something that you can't give it anymore. And it's as simple as that. Because we only ever trust someone completely until we don't. So you trust someone until you don't trust them anymore. And you're never going to know that until either you both get to the end of your journey or that you find out that they've done something that has, to you, made you lose that trust in them. Now, that doesn't need to be cheating. I think we associate it a lot with cheating, affairs, of being unfaithful, being not monogamous to the person. We spoke about that on a podcast. But I do think sometimes we put so much emphasis on trust. We freely give trust and we give it to everyone. It's not just relationships. It's relationships with friends as well. We give our trust to friends all the time. And we get let down, and then we decide whether or not we're going to trust them again, or we might have a break from them for a while, and it's all individual trust as well. How you give your trust and how you perceive your trust is very personal to each person. Someone could act towards me in a way that I just completely disregard and think nothing of, and I could act in the same way towards someone else, and they could think it's a really big deal and then stop trusting me. So I think you can be disappointed, but you can't be disappointed in the other person, I don't think, because it's like we obviously want things to work out, but if you trust someone, that's what you're doing. You're choosing to do that, and you have to. You have to take that gamble. Trust is a gamble. You're gambling that the other person won't let you down, but there's always a chance that there is, because the other person can tell you, you can trust me, fully trust me. I know myself, which I think I know myself very well, but I know only up to about 98% of the time, because there's been occasions in my life when I've acted in a way or reacted in a way that has even surprised me. And I think that happens a lot with people that end up having affairs that or cheating on their partners, where they never see something coming. They never see, the situation they get themselves into coming. It just happens. It evolves. And then they're in a situation then where they're panicking because they can't get out of it. And then rather than do the really, really difficult thing of sitting someone down and telling them the truth and saying, listen, I've met someone else, I really like him, I want to see where that goes, because we don't want to hurt each other fundamentally. I don't think in relationships people aren't like that. And I think if you'd ever been with someone that sat you down like that and said, right, I've met someone else, me and you are over, you would think, God, how heartless are they? They just completely disregarded me and thrown me to the side to start this new venture with someone else. But that is the bottom line. But people don't want to have those conversations because they're very aware of hurting people. So they tend to find themselves in these situations. But if people don't always know what's going to happen with them around the corner, they can't guarantee anything 100%. So I think we trust people until we don't. And that's the top and the bottom of it in terms of relationships, I think. You trust someone until you don't trust them anymore. So also reliability. It's about the other person shows consistent, dependable behavior. But again, consistent, dependable behavior is only consistent and dependable until it's not. How many times have we heard someone say, I never thought they'd do that. I never thought those two would break up. It turns out she was doing this or he was doing that. And so dependable and consistent is dependable and consistent until it's not, the same way as trust. Honesty, there's a transparency and truth. Now, again, this is something that we've related these two things to all aspects of relationship. I think transparency and truth are great things in an ideal world, but they're very clouded sometimes in relationships because I think we hide the truth sometimes and we're not always transparent about things because we're worried about hurting the other person. So we don't always do those things. And also, I think fundamentally, people are going to do what's good for them. That's the bottom line. People are going to make decisions which 100% they need to, that are going to be good for them. Stay with people just because they think it's the right thing to do when they're not happy, because eventually that's going to come out. And I would hate to be in a relationship where, you spend all your 40s and your 50s and you get up to your 60s and the person that you're with turns around and says, yeah, I stopped loving you 15, 20 years ago, but I stayed with you because it was the right thing to do. Sod that. That weren't the right thing to do. Tell me 15, 20 years ago, let me be upset for a few years, and then at least I'm still got 10 years to do something with. That's the right thing to do. But it's, and that's not out of being horrible to someone, although the final action actually probably is not the best thing to do, but people do it because they think they're doing the right thing, because they want to be consistent in their behavior and they want to be reliable for the other person because maybe that's what they promised. Also, competence. The trusted party is capable of doing what they say. And again, this thing goes right the way through. The trusted party is capable of doing what they say until they don't. If you apply this to politics, how many times have we heard different political parties come out and say, you can trust us. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. And then they don't, because they get into a situation where they find that, oh, we did say that, but actually that doesn't work at all. But so we're going to change that now. So, it's all very well being competent with giving your trust to people. But the bottom line is people want to be capable of doing what they say. They really do. People want to be trustworthy. I want to be trustworthy. I want to trust people, and I do. I think I give my trust quite quickly to people. And If they let me down, they let me down. You know, that's how I look at it now. But I don't think ever got the right to turn around and say to people, and I think I have done it, and I think I've been wrong when I have, like, you let me down. I trusted you. You let me down. Well, that's basically what happened, but they haven't let you down. They just haven't fulfilled your needs for you. They might have fulfilled their needs somewhere else, but they haven't fulfilled what you wanted from them. They haven't let you down. You gave something to them. You gave them your trust and it hasn't worked out. And you take it back. You don't keep it with them. You bring it back in. You know, you take it back and you call that a day. Or you take it back until a time where you feel like, okay, I'll give you a little bit again. I'll give you a little bit more, a little bit more. So I think you can trust people over a period of time, and I think you get lazy with your trust as well. I think sometimes if you're with a person a long time, maybe you get complacent because you stop doing the things that you did before. And I've had this before where someone's actually said to me, I trusted you and you've let me down. And I thought to myself, hold on a minute. I stopped trusting. I let you down, or you perceive I let you down, because you stopped being the person that you started out to be. So that changed my behavior completely. And that's the other thing. I think you can give your trust to people, but you've got to hold up your end of the bargain as well for them to live up to your expectations of your trust. Because if you don't, if you start changing your behaviors, you stop calling them, or you don't do things that you say you're going to do, or you know, you start giving your affection to them, then that's going to change their behavior. And I think we do this a lot. You know, when we say, you know, I'm constantly meeting the wrong people, I'm constantly being cheated on. I think sometimes you have to think, well, hold on a minute, I'm the common denominator. I'm the only common denominator in this. So maybe it's a case of, you know, these things keep happening to you because you keep behaving the same way to other people all the time. And if you keep behaving that way to other people, you are probably going to get the same ending constantly. And you're going to convince yourself that, you know, why is it me? I just pick the wrong guys. Well, that could be the case. You know, that really could be the case. But it also could be the case is they start off the right guys, but you end up treating all of them and not giving things that they may need that you promised them. So in the end, you know, they're going to get those things from someone else. And then they might say, look, I've met someone else. And you're going to go, oh, you know, another one I've met who's been wrong. But actually, they probably, if you was ever to have a honest conversation with them, they would probably say, well, you know, you stopped being the person that you showed me signs that you would be, and neglected me in ways that someone else then gave to me. So I think it's really important, like with our trust as well, that we realise, you know, we've got an end of our trust to hold up. If we're giving that trust to a person, that person expects us to be the person that we are when they're trusting us. Which sounds very confusing, but you know, if you suddenly change the person you are, they're not going to live up to your expectations anymore, because they're going to think, you know, you're not the person that I was willing to live up to this trust. You've completely changed how you are. So I think that's a big part of it as well, is that you don't just give your trust to someone and do nothing and it's all on them to live up to your expectations. You've got to maintain being the person that you've promised to be, or you showed them to be. You can't then suddenly change that. And I think that's very similar when you first meet people as well. And a lot of these things are no one's fault, but you know, everyone wants to please people when they first meet people. So you could meet someone and they might be like a real gym bunny or a gym guy. And you're like, oh, okay, well, yeah, of course I go to the gym. I go to the gym all the time. I'm always in the gym, me, you know. And for the first sort of 4 or 5 weeks of the relationship, you're down the gym with them all the time, and you know, you're working out with them, or you're working out on your own, and you're maintaining this until you get to a point of where you go, sod this, you know, I'm not doing this is not me. And then that's what you should be doing, because if it's not you, you shouldn't be doing things that aren't in your nature or you don't enjoy. But then all of a sudden, this other person is going to turn around and go, well, hold on a minute. I thought you really enjoyed these things and you were doing these things, and now you don't. I'm not really attracted to people that don't do those things, because that was a common interest for me. That was one of the things that I really want in someone. And that could be a whole host of things, an absolute whole host of things. So I think that's really evident in a lot of relationships that I see that break down after 2 or 3 months, is that we're all trying to be the person that someone else wants to be. And if it's not actually us, eventually you will fall back into old habits and the person that you was before you changed everything. And that could cause upset. Okay, the last thing. So benevolence. You believe that they have your best interests in mind. Well, they don't. They're going to have their best interests in mind, because essentially people will do what's most of the time right for them in situations when it comes down to it. I think 100% there are occasions where we don't do what's good for us because it helps other people, but to different extents. If it's a life-changing thing and it's going to be for a long time, people will do what's right for them because they need to. They should do, because eventually that will come up again. And if not, you're going to end up doing the right thing for other people at the expense of your own happiness. So I think, we do trust people to do the right things by us and have your best interests in mind, but it will only be to an extent, and you can only expect that to an extent as well. So the whole issue of trust in relationships, I think if you approach it in a way of, I'm going to give you something freely because I want to. And it's nice to trust someone. It is nice to trust someone. And if you find out that they haven't fulfilled your expectations of what your trust is, it does hurt. But that's part of it. It doesn't stop you doing it again. I play football all the time. And when I get injured, it hurts. It takes me 2 or 3 weeks to get through it and get over it. But I play again because I love doing it. And it's the same with, with being in relationships and being in love. If it's something you really enjoy and you enjoy that feeling, for me, I enjoy the feeling of actually loving someone as much as knowing that I'm loved back. For me, it's very much a giving thing. It's about knowing I feel that way about someone. So I think I give, like I said, I'll give my trust to someone as soon as I'm ready. And sometimes it's very quickly. If it doesn't work out, I won't blame them, and I won't blame myself either. I won't think, oh, why have I done that? Because I know that's me. I'll just do what I think is right for me. And if it doesn't work out, I'll regroup, recoup, and then do the same again. And then eventually you keep doing it until you learn that trust is something that you lend out. You don't give it, you lend it out. And if you lend it to someone until the point of you take it back, because it's always in your control, the trust. You never lose it in terms of someone doesn't run off with it once you give it to them. Okay, it's not like lending someone 20 quid. It's something that you keep always. You just lend it to people. And it's entirely up to you how much of it you give them, obviously. You might only give them a little bit as you go along. It's all individual how much trust you give. Some people never trust people. They just learn to never trust people. But I think if you don't trust people, you're never really fully opening yourself up, because you have to be vulnerable. You do have to be vulnerable in relationships. And the downside of being vulnerable is you can get hurt, but that's what relationships are. That is always the gamble. But I think the gamble's worth it when it's all good. So anyway, guys, thank you for joining me. Send me your feedback. Tell me what you think about trust. How does it work in your relationships? Do you feel that you're always meeting the same people that are letting you down, you're losing your trust? And have you said to people, I trusted you, you let me down, especially within relationships? But make sure you subscribe, make sure you follow. And the podcast goes from strength to strength. It's doing really well. So I appreciate your support. I appreciate you following and liking everything that we do. So take care, guys. See you soon.